TV, Conway Community Television.
Welcome everybody to Inside Mount Washington Valley Education. This program is developed to present information on academic and educational programming throughout the Mount Washington Valley. My name is Bob Godomsky. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Schools in SAU 9, and I'm going to be your host today. Today's program will center around academic achievement and academic excellence at Kennett High School. Joining me today is the principal of Kennett High School, Mr. Neil Moylan. Neil, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Neil, could you start us off a little bit by talking about what is the philosophy at Kennett High School in regards to continuous academic improvement?
At Kennett High, our commitment is to continuous improvement academically and socially as we begin to prepare our students for life in the 21st century. In a global economy, as you know, the competition for our youngsters is not just coming from New Hampshire, New England, or even California. They're now competing against kids from every corner of the globe. And so it is important that we prepare our students to be able to meet this challenge, exceed this challenge, and become successful. We go about this in a number of different ways, which we'll discuss as this interview goes on.
Now, I know that there isn't just one program in place or one magic, wave the magic wand and it happens. Let's talk about a few of those programs that help out continuous improvement. Could you talk a little bit about PLCs? What are PLCs and how does that affect student learning?
PLCs is a short abbreviation for what we call professional learning communities. And at Kennett High School, we've embraced professional learning communities for the past 5 years. It's a collaborative culture where teachers meet regularly on a weekly basis, essentially to take a look at key learning targets for each course, and how are we going to assess those key learning targets, and what are we going to do if the students are not able to meet the expectations and standards. One of the things that it's been able to do is to push the rigor. We talked about academic improvement and continuous improvement. It's been able to push the rigor of all of our courses. And secondly, it's enabled us to begin to work on differentiated instruction, which we're going to talk about a little bit in the future. And also, as we look towards the Common Core standards, which New Hampshire has embraced as our planning goal for the future, we are now working on weaving in the Common Core standards into our current curriculum. Basically, it is what do we want the students to know, how are we going to know if they know it, and what are they going to do if they don't know it. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful professional development opportunity. It really has enhanced the classroom. And the other piece is that if there are several teachers that are teaching an Algebra 1 or an English class or a Spanish 1, we can be certain that because we have common assessments that are aligned by grade and by subject matter, that when a student moves from one course to the next, they're all going to be on that same page.
Now, we understand in education that literacy is so very important, and reading is one of those areas that we need to make sure that students are successful because it impacts everything they do in learning. A few years ago, the middle school started what they called the READ program, Read Every Day. And I understand that Kennett High School has a reading break. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And to talk a little bit about reading and the READ program and just literacy in general, one of the things that the data shows is that with the advent of the digital revolution, kids watching more TV, using more computers, less and less time has been spent on reading. And as you said, one of the most important things our youngsters can do is to enhance and strengthen and advance their reading skills. So we took a look at what Kevin Richard at the Kennett Middle School had been doing with his READ program, Read Every Day program, and began to think that this is an opportunity for us. We looked at some of our scores. We saw that our reading scores were lower than we wanted. They were below the national average. It's our belief that the student reading program will also enhance our writing program. So last year we began a reading break program. It happens 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the students are able to go into small groups, 12, 13 on one, not only with teachers, but with staff members who are volunteers, so we keep those groups small. And kids can pick any book that they would like, sit quietly for 25 minutes, and read. A couple of advantages that we found is that initially our youngsters had trouble for sitting quietly for 25 minutes. And as like in any exercise, as you begin to work at something, their ability for endurance for reading became better and better. Their focus became better and better. In addition to that, one of the things that we found now is that the kids use that reading break program almost as if it's a mental focusing. So it begins at 5 of 9. By the time they leave there, they're focused, they're calm, they're in an academic mode. It's been extremely successful. I have never seen as many youngsters walking into the building and out of the building and sitting waiting for rides from moms and dads and whatnot with books in their hands. There are more books flying around Kennet High School than I can ever remember. The other thing that's been very impressive at the Reading Break program is if you walk the building around 9 o'clock, 9:05, you can walk through every floor and peek into every little space where we have a Reading Break program. And it does your heart good because all you'll see will be kids with books open, heads down, focused on what's going on, the quiet within that school as if it's a church or a place of worship. It is just amazing. Kids will even speak to you in hushed tones in the hall. And so it's been a wonderful new program for us, and I think it's been very successful.
That's terrific. You talked a few minutes ago about differentiated instruction. How is that being infused into the classroom? What does it mean, and how does it affect student learning?
Well, one of the things that we know within the last 10 years, for sure, there's been a great advancement on the study of the brain, how the brain works, and concurrently how students and how human beings learn. And we know that all human beings don't learn the same way. Some folks are very adept at sitting there at a lecture and listening and having somebody lecture to them for whatever the time period is and learning. Other kids need to, or people need to have a hands-on experience. Just tell me a little bit about it. Let me get in there with my hands and let me see if I can learn it that way. Other folks are visual. They need to see what it is that we're looking at and what they need to learn, and in order to be able to do that. So it basically is an opportunity for us to present the curriculum and the content in a way that aligns with the student's key learning style. It is one of the things that allows us to treat a classroom of students as if they are diverse learners, for indeed they are. And it also allows students to be able to pick that learning style, which they're most comfortable with, to be able to access the material and improve their education. In addition to the learning piece, what we also look to do is to have the students demonstrate how they have mastery of the subject with differentiated assessment. So some students may be able to give a report and be able to present their mastery of the material through a report. Others may work on a project or a PowerPoint or a video or whatever it is. So it really treats each student as an individual. It requires great work on the part of the teacher to be able to take the curriculum and really tailor it to different learning styles. And as I said earlier, we have the PLCs. This is some of the work that we've been doing within the PLC, but it is certainly evidence that our students and our staff are committed to continuous education. So hats off to all of them.
Now, continuous academic improvement is measured in a variety of ways. There's no one tool that can give you a clear picture of your entire school or your student population and how they're doing. One measure of how students are doing are the SATs. How are the SAT scores at Kennet High School, and what's the history and the progression been there?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Bob. We've taken a very serious, we being the staff, and I mean everybody in the high schools, not just the teachers, but it's everybody that works with kids, have taken a serious look at the SAT. And we know that a score on the SAT does not necessarily indicate whether a student is going to be successful or unsuccessful, because there are a lot of factors that go into measuring a student's intelligence and a student's ability to be successful. But what we also know is that SAT is that national benchmark that is currently being used by colleges and whatnot to use as a barometer for measuring students from school A to school B, and perhaps a precursor to whether they're going to be successful. So we took a look at it, and Kennet High School had a couple of years where our SAT scores were down. And so as a school, as a faculty, we've addressed it, and we put in a number of different areas and issues as to how to deal with it. Last year, we worked on a small warm-up exercise with their SAT question preps. And so historically, our scores have been in the 1,400 range. And as I brought with me today a listing of where we're at, you can see that the Kennett SAT scores have risen dramatically over the last couple of years. In fact, our SAT scores last year rose by 81 points. It was 14 points the year before that. So over the last 2 years, Kennett High School has increased our SAT scores by 95 points. Incredibly amazing, and also if you compare it to what's going on in the national trend, nationally test scores have been down by a couple of points. So our Kennett High School score now, average score, is 1,550. That is the highest score that we've ever been in and ever had as a high school. And it certainly is something that we are all incredibly proud of. SATs measure 3 areas: reading, math, and writing. And as I took a look at the Kennett High School scores, I noticed that we are above the national average in every single category. You can take a look as well. If you take a look at our critical reading scores, last year we had an increase of 37 points in our critical reading scores. If you take a look at our math scores, last year we had an increase of 23 points in our critical reading scores. But again, in the last 2 years, both of these factors are going up. And finally, in writing scores. Writing scores, we increased 21 points. I do believe we'll continue to improve in writing as well this year, and in reading and math. And this is going to be one of those target areas that we've really gone after.
Now, I know you and your staff have worked very diligently on that in a variety of different ways. How do the PSATs enter into that? Is that a benefit factor for students to take the PSATs before the SATs? How does that enter into it?
Sure. There's plenty of evidence and research out there that shows that youngsters who take the PSAT are more successful when they begin to enter into their junior year and senior year to take the SAT. Essentially, the PSAT is a preliminary scholastic aptitude test, practice test, if you will. One of the benefits is it has the ability to demonstrate to the student what is the expectation, the ability to sit down, how questions are framed, going through a time test. So it really does end up preparing students to be able to meet that challenge. 2 years ago, we decided that it was important for all of our juniors to take the PSAT. So we applied for a grant, and we're successful by getting a 5-year grant. So we currently administer at no charge whatsoever, because typically they're $35 or $40 for the PSAT. We administer to every single junior the PSAT at no charge. We did that actually last week for the first time. So the fact that our entire junior class is now able to take the PSAT, they're all been exposed. They all understand that the SAT is not some mysterious, scary thing. It really breaks down those barriers and prepares our students for success. So that has been a big factor. One of the other factors is that we used to offer the SAT only one time at Kennett High School, and then if the student wanted to take it a second or even a third time, they would have to travel to Berlin, maybe down to Wolfboro, to Kingswood, maybe over to Freiburg. And so we changed there, too. We decided that there's something known as home court advantage. We talk about it in sports. We talk about it, all the time. So when our youngsters now take the SAT, we offer it 3 times at Kennett High School: October, November, and once in the spring. They know where they're going. They know the layout of the facility. They know the people that are proctoring the test. It's one other factor that we take away in terms of distracting the students from being able to perform.
Now let's talk a little bit about where the rubber hits the road. I mean, I know that leadership is important, but a quality staff is important as well. Could you talk a little bit about your teaching staff and how they come into impacting student learning?
We have a dedicated, passionate group of teachers that put in a tremendous amount of time. They have bought in lock, stock, and barrel into the differentiated instruction program. They have really focused in on doing what's in the best interest of the kids. They bought in on student engagement. For instance, in the past, we've had English 2, English 3, and English 4. We knew that our English writing scores were below the state and national average. We knew that our reading scores were below the state and national average. So this is one of those areas that we really wanted to focus in on. Our entire English department, we went down to Oyster River, who has scores amongst the very highest in the state. We went down last year, we took a look at what they were doing, And our staff came back, the English department, and literally wrote 20 new courses. And it could be everything from reading and writing internationally, to a history of New Hampshire in literature, to science fiction, to Shakespeare. So they devoted an enormous amount of their time, not only during a PLC time, but also on their own time during the summer, to put something together so that the kids had a real interest in what was going on. Our students now take 2 courses a year. They take an English class in their first semester, and then they take a different English class in the second semester. The popularity of the English program is such that I was just recently at the Mineral Spring Cafe, our restaurant. We have kids now that are taking 3 and 4 classes in English every single year because they are so interested in what they're doing. That's directly attributable to the job that our teachers are doing. I can't say enough about the quality of our staff. They are outstanding.
Teaching is really a difficult job, and coming into the teaching profession obviously is a very difficult, it's tough to get your feet on the ground and really become a master teacher. What are some things that Kennett High School is doing and SAU 9 is doing to really support those young teachers?
You're absolutely right. One of the most difficult jobs that there is teaching. We know that 33% of new teachers end up leaving the profession within the first 3 years. We know that that figure goes up to 50% after the first 5 years. It's a tough, tough job. And consequently, the importance of having a teacher experience some success early on is extremely important. I would have to say, first of all, that any teacher at Kennett High School is always willing to embrace to help a brand new teacher. It goes without saying that our folks are there to help people, kids, adults, everybody. But we have put in a formalized mentor program. The formalized mentor program ensures that there is one quality, highly skilled veteran teacher that works side by side with a brand new teacher, helping them with such issues as classroom management, grading, parent communication, typical situations that might have been difficult to understand, and whether it's because of the culture of the building, the culture of the valley. So they really help that teacher. In addition, our mentor program meets on a monthly basis. They cover different topics each month. They're also together with the other brand new teachers in there, and it has been a very successful program. I think it was probably 7 or 8 years ago, may have been a little bit more than that, our turnover rate at the high school was 40%. Our current turnover rate is approximately 7 or 8%, and some of that is natural attrition due to retirement. I can't stress enough the importance of academic success and building success, of having a staff that continues to grow and build if we're going to continue to push an academic target that continually rises.
Now, Kennett High School is doing some wonderful things, and my hat is off to everybody up there, but we are getting kids into Kennett High School from 10 or more different communities, many different schools feeding into our high school, all the way from Tamworth on the southern tip, all the way up to Hart's location, Jackson, Bartlett. Can you speak a little bit about what the sending schools are doing to really progress continuous improvement?
Well, as I said before, at Kennett Middle School, they have the RED program, and I know that Joe Vosi over at the Bartlett Middle School does a tremendous amount of reading. Those programs have really helped leapfrog our youngsters forward. But in addition, all 3 sending schools, the Brett School down in Tamworth, the Bartlett School, and the Kennett Middle School, there is a collaboration that occurs between the 8th grade teachers and the 9th grade teachers. So we are sharing curriculum. They know at the 8th grade level what our expectations are. So we've really been able to share with them some of our common assessments, our formative assessments, and that collaborative piece allows the teachers at both sides, and it has to be a collaborative piece. We need to know how they are preparing our students and what their expectations are. They need to know what our expectations are as the students move into high school. So the collaboration between the 2 schools and the administration has been outstanding.
So when we get a variety variety of kids coming from all different directions in the Valley, and they all come together at Kennett High School in the 9th grade. How do we make sure that those kids transition well into the high school setting?
Well, as you may recall, years ago we had an extraordinarily high dropout rate, and one of the things that we did to combat that was to create what was called the Student Success Task Force at the time. And the thing that became most striking in terms of looking at where we were falling behind was that the freshman failure rate at that time was extraordinarily high. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 16.5%. And the other thing that it was the assimilation into the high school just wasn't happening. They remained Bartlett kids. They remained Conway Kennett Middle School kids. They remained Tamworth kids. And they stayed in those little groups for a long period of time. Kids began to feel as if they didn't know anybody. And it really was leading to students that, as they fell behind in their grades, they fell behind in their credits, what we found out was the probability of them dropping out was greatly increased. So what we have incorporated is now what we call the freshman house. So kids come in to Kennett High School, and they're no longer Bartlett kids, Conway kids, Tamworth kids. They are placed into teams. We blend up all the teams in the freshman house. They're Team 1, Team 2, Team 3. So within a very short period of time, they're no longer identifying themselves from where they came. They're now identifying themselves as a team concept and also as Kennett High School students. As the years have gone by and our new facility has really lent a tremendous amount of pride, kids get very successful and have seen the success that we've experienced at Kennett High School and are excited to be there. And so consequently, you have a team of students that is also managed by a dedicated, focused team of teachers who know those youngsters inside and out. So the student and the team of teachers that has, let's say yourself, if you were in Team 1, if I was an English teacher, I would have you, but I would also have a collaborative time with my English teachers, with my teachers in Team 1, so I would be able to talk to the math teachers, the science teachers, the history teachers. So if something was working for me or not working for me, I could quickly begin to put our attention on that. In addition to that, you've taken a group of 230, 250 kids, and you've made it, instead of a giant class, because many of these kids are used to much smaller classrooms, down to a team of 80, 85 kids. Sure. So it's much more manageable on their part.
That's terrific. Let's switch gears a little bit here. Let's talk about the high-achieving students for a few minutes, the ones that are really challenging themselves, perhaps far beyond the high school curriculum. Talk about the AP courses a little bit and what that offers as a challenge for students.
Well, one of the things that we have done a good job on and spent an enormous amount of time on has been, really driving down that dropout rate. It was a huge problem. It demanded that we go there first. But then, several years ago, we decided that, what are we going to do for the top 10 or 15 percentile of students, that upper echelon, if you will, and how do we continue to push and get the rigor of that particular program and challenge those kids so that we could prepare them for high school and then also college. So we've added a number of different AP courses. We have added 3 new AP courses this year. We have 7 in total in the high school. And this year we also added Calc BC, Calc Psych, and Calc German. And we also began to stress the importance of taking the AP exam for all of our kids, so that it is now an expectation that if you take an AP class, you will be taking the AP exam. The reason for that is there is tons of documentation that shows that if a student enters an AP course with the understanding that at the culmination of this course they will be testing through the AP exam, then the rigor of that course is greatly enhanced throughout the entire part of the year, which is exactly what we want. So we took a look, and I'm glad you asked that. You can take a look at the number of students that we have. In the past 2 years, we've increased the number of kids in our AP program by 27 students, and we now have 68 kids that are taking AP courses, and that was last year's number. With 3 new AP courses this year, I can guarantee you their numbers are higher yet. And then you can take a look. I had talked about the importance of taking those exams. You can see that we've added 67 new AP exams to the kids. I think they're taking a total of 112 at this point in time. And one of the huge advantages to the AP exam is that if you score a 3, 4, or 5 on it, many colleges will actually give you college credit. So we have youngsters that are graduating from Kennett High School, going out into college, and ending up there with 3, 6, 8, 12 credits. We have one youngster in particular that started at Keene and started as a second semester freshman because he had taken so many AP courses. And then we talk about the scores of 3 or above, and you can see that our kids over the past 2 years have increased that by 27. Again, real positive workload on that. One of the other things that I want to talk about with regard to the AP is that the trickle-down effect. When you're working and solving issues of students of the dropout rate and putting in programs to help those youngsters be successful, that really goes after that population of students. When you're working with students at the upper echelon, it's inevitable that skills, assessments, techniques, projects, everything that a teacher does is going to trickle down into the advanced classes, the CP classes that we have as well. So from a high school perspective, it's almost as if it pulls you up by your bootstraps and brings the whole high school up, which is exactly what we want to do.
That's exciting. A few years ago, you had mentioned briefly that Kennett High School had a dropout rate of 7%.
Right.
Recently, our dropout rate was at 0.23%, right. From 7% to 0.23%. That's magnificent. I know that the Student Success Task Force was organized, I think, 5 years ago and incorporated the feedback from people throughout the Valley. Could you talk a little bit about one specific program that really had a lot to do with lowering the dropout rate, Eagle Academy? What's Eagle Academy and how has that influenced the dropout rate?
Eagle Academy is our adult high school, if you will. You can go and attend Eagle Academy if you're 33, you want to go back and get your degree, or if you want to earn your degree in a different way. Eagle Academy is extremely beneficial because it works with students that are struggling during the traditional day program, and whether it happens to be that there are financial needs for it, and that's certainly the case in this day and age, where students have to work to help the family household, whether there are personal issues, health issues, whatever it happens to be, youngsters are not necessarily always able to be successful in the day program. So we began Eagle Academy back in 2007, and that gave students an opportunity, and dropouts an opportunity, to go back in and earn their degree. Having worked with many of those kids, having run the Eagle Academy several years ago, I can tell you for sure that I have never, ever met a student that is taken pride or wants to be a high school dropout. Students may not feel successful. Students may end up proponing or saying that, well, it's just not for me. But they understand in their heart of hearts the importance of that education. So we've been able to take in a number of students. We currently have 60 students during the Eagle Academy during this semester. But whether it was students that have dropped out, that we reached out, brought them back in, gave them the opportunity, or whether it's students that transferred from the day program and said, geez, you know, I need to go to work, my family is having financial issues, or whatever it was, we've been able to graduate up to this point in time 105 students that traditionally either would have dropped out, struggled in high school, and not been successful. We have 18 more scheduled and slated for graduation this December, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful program. We've enhanced it a little bit as well. We've added the GED program, which is also in there at night as another opportunity for kids to earn a degree. Many of our students have gone on from Eagle Academy into colleges, the world of work, internships, the military. The bottom line is they're leaving the Eagle Academy with something that gives them an opportunity for a future. And they understand the importance of it, and they do come back and respond accordingly.
With so much success at Kennett High School and so many programs in place, what's your vision? What do you see as next? What is Kennett High School going to do down the road for continuous improvement?
Well, we've just begun to really scratch the surface. We're above the state and national. We're above the national average on all of the SAT scores. We're above the state average in math. We're above the state average in reading. We're 10 points below the state average in writing. We're going to get that, and we're going to take that this year. But I do think that we want to continue to improve and enhance, again, that upper level AP course levels. So I can anticipate seeing a couple more AP courses coming down the road. Another exciting program that we have, it really is in its incubation program, if you will, is our new robotics program. We have a robotics club. It's a wonderful way for us to leverage students in CAD, physics, IT, and math, and machine tool. And so it seems to have found a real niche with kids. At our recent parade for the homecoming parade, we had the band, we had the dance team, we had the cheerleaders, we had the floats, and we also had a contingent of kids from the robotics team. Robots came marching up Eagles Way. So I see the robotics as being another way, as an opportunity for the future. Certainly is something that hooks kids into science and math in the 21st century. The other thing that I can see is an increase in cross-disciplinary curriculum work amongst our staff. One of the things you hear from kids over and over and over again is, why do I need to know this, Mr. Moylan? How is this ever going to help me in my life? We have the Career Tech Center at Kennett High School, and it's probably one of the finest career tech centers in the state, not only from an equipment standpoint, but from a professional standpoint in terms of the teachers and the director that's running it. Our opportunity there is to be able to take those hands-on skills, those hands-on methods of taking the academic high school education and applying it to hands-on work and hands-on opportunities is an opportunity that we've only begun to scratch the surface of. The robotics is one of the things that we're working on that. So I can see an enhanced growth in the PLCs of that. I'd love to see our reading break. We've entered into a small contest with the Manchester Fisher Cats for the high school that reads the most books in the state. We're going to try to do that. I can see the reading break continuing to go on. There are a lot of really very positive things that are happening.
What do you see as roadblocks? What are some of the hurdles that we need to clear to make sure that Kennett High School continues to progress?
We're on a great road right now. We know that our staff turnover rate has been very low, and part of that I attribute to a number of things. I think culturally, environmentally, we have a very positive school and environment. But I think that staff stability is the number one piece in place. If we continually are turning over staff, which is something that had been an issue in the past, it becomes very difficult to form a community of learners and to form actually a school where kids know who everybody is. It honestly takes a new teacher coming out of high school 2 to 3 years before they really hit their stride. And in the past, unfortunately, we've found a good teacher and we've lost good teachers for whatever the reason is. So staff stability is something that I believe that we need to really stay with. And then from a financial standpoint, we're not looking to break the bank or anything else. All we're looking to do is let us finish the job that we've started. We are dedicated, and we, by the teachers, the staff, the custodians, the kitchen workers, to continuous improvement for all of our kids in the Mount Washington Valley. And it's good for the kids. I think it's good for the Valley. I think it's good for the state. It's certainly good for real estate and business in this area. And I think that all we want to do is finish the job that we've set out to begin.
That's terrific. We hear a lot of wonderful things going on. Is there anything that I missed that you would like to fill us in on that's happening up at Kennett High School?
Well, school pride is at an all-time high. You may have seen the parade, the homecoming parade, where we've gotten the floats back. We've really tried to embrace the idea that Kennett High School has a long, proud history. And we have a new Alumni Association display up there, so it's not unusual for me to walk outside the library where the display is and have kids peering into the display and looking at the building from 1923. There's a picture of the football team from 23 and 24. We look to be able to continue that tradition as well. And we also want the kids to understand those traditions that we have in the Valley. Our Minnow Spring gazebo is part of our local history. We want our kids to be able to understand our local history and embrace it. Our brand new sign at the bottom of Eagles Way, that planter that we have down there is created from granite out of the Redstone Quarry, part of our local history. Kennett connections are things that are becoming harder and harder to find in the 21st century, and I think that those connections are what we look to continue to grow on.
That's terrific. I would just like to take a moment to thank all of the parents and the sending schools throughout the Mount Washington Valley. We talk about the successes that we're seeing up at the high school and the wonderful things that our students are doing. We need to remember that it's a progression from kindergarten, preschool, all the way up through high school. So the things that our elementary schools and our middle schools are doing certainly add up to support wonderful success at Kennett High School. Unfortunately, we're starting to run out of time for today's program. I'd like to thank Mr. Moylan for joining us today. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next time, what we're going to focus on is RTI, response to intervention. What is it? How is it implemented in the schools? And how does it affect student success? And when do we apply interventions to ensure student success? All of those answers are, all of those questions are going to be answered next time as we explore RTI, or response to intervention. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, and hopefully you'll join us next time on Inside Mount Washington Valley Education. Thank you again for joining us.
Well, we made it. Here we are at the summit of Mount Washington at 6,288 feet. We're the highest peak in the Northeast United States. And we're here to check out the Mount Washington Observatory and all the different things that we do, from museums to research to the observations that we do, as well as educational programs. So let's go check out the Mount Washington Observatory.